Hello, everybody. It's me, and I am here particularly this time for Atlantis and Enterprise, who I feel like I've ignored a little bit with my other reading. So we are reading David Walliams' The Ice Monster, generally accepted in my family to be one of the funniest books ever written. So we've chosen that. I have got a bit of a frog in my throat. It is nothing more than that, I promise you. So I do apologise. I've got a glass of water now.
Hello again.
He's
hello,
here.
Hello.
In case anybody missed him. I'm sure
You're in
you
my
didn't.
room.
Sure you didn't. So this book, if you've not read it before, starts with an introduction to all the characters, and I'm not going to read it all, but it's worth reading if you've got a copy of the book. But there is Elsie, who's the main character, our main heroine. There's Dottie, the cleaning lady, who's very funny. Dottie's boyfriend, Private Thomas, the shortest soldier ever to have been in the army. Mrs. Curdle, who owns the orphanage. Some policemen, a mad professor, an even madder lady that hunts animals, and some Chelsea pensioners, who are... Chelsea pensioners are people that used to be in the army and retired now, and they live at Chelsea Hospital. You don't need to talk, okay? They do wear red coats. It's actually one of the coolest things about them. And Queen Victoria's in it as well. And the Sticky Fingers gang, who are the other children who live in the orphanage. So, and Raj, who's in nearly every David Walliams book. Right, so that's the main people in the book. And that's enough of that for now. We will crack on with chapter 1. We'll do it in pretty much 10-minute batches because that's all my upload speeds will cope with. So I hope you enjoy it. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Chapter 1, Cockroaches for Breakfast. One bleak winter night in the back streets of London. A tiny baby was left on the steps of an orphanage. There was no note, no name, no clue as to who this little person was. Just the potato sack in which she was wrapped as snow fell around her. In Victorian times, it was not uncommon for newborn babies to be abandoned outside orphanages, hospitals, or even the homes of upper-class folk. Their poor, desperate mothers hoped their children would be taken in and given a better life than their birth families could provide. However, it was hard to imagine a worse start in life for a baby than Wormley Hall. Home for unwanted children. 26 orphans lived there, all crammed into a room that should have slept 8 at the absolute most. The children were locked up, starved and beaten. On top of that, they were forced to work day and night. They had to assemble gentlemen's pocket watches from tiny pieces until they went blind. All the children were painfully thin, with filthy rags for clothes. The orphans' faces were black with soot, so that all you could see in the gloom was their hopeful little eyes. Oh. When a new baby arrived in the orphanage, all the other children would come up with a name for them. They liked to work their way through the alphabet so that their names would be as different as possible. That night, the baby in the potato sack was left on the steps. They had reached E. If she had been found the day before, she might have been called Doris. A day later, she could have been a Frank. Instead, she was named Elsie. This prison of an orphanage was run by an evil old boot named Mrs. Curdle. Her face was usually fixed in a permanent grimace. She was covered from head to toe in warts. She had so many warts that even her warts had warts. The only thing that made her smile was the sound of children sobbing. Mrs. Curdle would scoff all the food donated for the orphans, so the children in her care had to eat cockroaches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Oh, creepy crawlies are good for you, she would chuckle. If any of the orphans spoke after candles out, she would stuff one of her puss-sodden old stockings into their mouth. They would have to keep it there for a week. That'll keep you quiet, Windy Wallet. And the children would When the children were sleeping in the cold stone floor, she would put wiggly worms down the backs of their shirts, and they would wake up screaming, "Ah! Oh, Hornswoggler!" Mrs. Curdle would sneeze over the orphans, "Achoo!" and blow her nose in their hair. A weekly bath involved her dunking the orphans one by one into a barrel full of maggots. "These maggots will nibble off the dirt." "You muck snipes," Mrs. Curdle would snigger. To dry off afterwards, she would peg the children on the washing line by their ears. Twang! Once, when Elfie was found with a pet rat in her pocket that she had befriended, Mrs. Curdle used it as a ball in a game of cricket. Thwack! If she felt one of the orphans had given her a funny look, Mrs. Curdle would poke them in the eye with her dirty stubby finger. "Ouch! Take that, jib face!" As a special treat at Christmas, the orphans would line up for their present, a whack on the bottom with a bumper book of carols. Bash. "Merry Christmas, child!" Mrs. Curdle would exclaim with glee in each strike. Elsie endured 10 long, hard years at Wormley Hall. The only thing that kept her going was the dream that one day her ma would magically appear and whisk her away, but she never did. As the girl grew up, she would invent more and more incredible stories about her. Perhaps her ma was a jungle explorer or an acrobat with a travelling circus. Even better, a lady pirate, off having adventures on the high seas. Every night, Elsie would make up bedtime stories for her fellow orphans. Over time, the girl became a magnificent storyteller. She had all the other children in the palm of her grubby little hand. Then Ma found herself in the dark, dark place. It was a huge belly of a blue whale. Ma escaped from a tribe of cannibals. That wasn't easy, as they'd already gobbled up her left leg. Boom! Ma had thrown the bomb into the Thames just in time. No one was killed. It was all a day's work for a secret agent. The end. When that night story finished, the other orphans would cry out, "Another! We don't want to go to sleep just yet. Please, Elsie, just one more." One night, the children cheered so much at Elsie's story that they woke up Mrs. Curdle. "No more stories, you nasty little beasts!" raged the woman, beating Elsie with a broomstick on every word. The puss-sodden stocking that she stuffed in the girl's mouth only half muffled her screams. "Ah!" The beating was so severe that Elsie wasn't sure she was going to survive. Her little body was black and blue with bruises, and that girl knew she had to escape or die. Chapter 2, Monkey Feet. Elsie loved all the rats and pigeons that would find their way inside Wormley Hall. If she had any food, she would share it with them and tend to any broken wings and legs. They would snuggle up to her, which made her feel less lonely. In her heart, Elsie felt a deep connection to these animals that Mrs. Curdle called vermin. To her, they were little creatures, all alone in a world like hers. Elsie had noticed how the rats got into the orphanage by scuttling along a leaky pipe that came down from the ceiling. One thing that set Elsie apart from her fellow orphans was her feet. Elsie didn't have ordinary feet. She had monkey feet. The advantage of having long, thick toes that could grip like fingers was that it made climbing easy peasy. So one night, when everyone else was asleep, Elsie scaled the pipe to see where the rats scrambled in. Just as she had thought, there was a small rat-sized hole at the top of the wall. After that, every night after candles out, Elsie scaled the pipe using her monkey feet. Once at the top, she would scrape away the brickwork with her fingernails. Night after night, she scraped and she scraped, making the hole bigger and bigger. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Eventually, the hole was just large enough for Elsie to squeeze her tiny, underfed body through. However, she couldn't leave Wormley Hall without saying goodbye to her 25 friends. "Wake up," she called softly. Little eyes began to appear out of the dark. I'm going to run away tonight. Who's coming with me? Silence. I said, who's coming with me? There were murmurs of, I'm too scared, and Curdle'll kill us, and they'll catch us and beat us to death. The littlest little one of the lot was named Nancy. She looked up to Elsie like she was a big sister. Nancy whispered, Where are you going? I don't know, replied the girl, but anywhere but here. Please don't forget about us. Never. Promise? I promise, said Elsie. I'll see you again one day. I know it. I'm going to miss your stories, said another orphan, Felix. Me too, added Percival. Next time I see you, I'll tell you the greatest story of all. Good luck, Elsie, said Nancy. You'll always be in here, replied Elsie, patting her chest. The girl gave one last shimmy up the pipe with her monkey feet. She squeezed herself through the hole in the wall, and with one final wiggle, she was gone. Okay, I'll read you another couple of chapters in a couple of days. I hope you enjoy them. All right, take care. Bye.